Call order the town board meeting at the Lisbon Town Hall on Monday, August 22nd, 2022 at 6:33 PM. Roll call, please.
Chairman Osterman.
Here.
Supervisor Moonen.
Here.
Supervisor Beal. Supervisor Quinn. Here. Supervisor Flotecker. We've got DPW Director Joe DiStefano in the audience. And we've got John Cameron from Ellers and Clerk Elise Capasso Catch to record the minutes.
Thank you. All right, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3 of comments from citizens present. Anyone here wish to speak or anyone on Zoom?
No hands
Nobody on
raised. John.
Zoom. Items 4 is the consent agenda. Items listed under the consent agenda are considered in one motion unless a town board member requested an item be removed. We have the August 8th, 2022 town board minutes and the letter of correction credit reduction for Pheasant View Meadows in the amount of $1,046,832.13. Have a motion or one anything removed?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Moved by Moonen. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Beal. Any discussion?
Mm-mm.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 5 is accounts payable. We have A, authorizing the payment of the Falls Auto Parts bill in the amount of $278.40. Any questions, or is there a motion on that check?
I make a motion, we authorize payment of the Falls Auto Parts bill in the amount of $278.40.
I'll second.
Moved by Linda, second by Paula. Any discussion?
Mm-mm.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. We have authorizing the payment of the remaining bills in the amount of $344,675.05. Lee Recreation was the top expenditure at $182,000. Waukesha County Treasurer was $73,485. Kunkel Engineering was $14,253. Tim O'Brien Homes for $10,000 and Anthem Blue Cross for $9,510. Does anyone have any questions on the check register, or is there a motion?
I make a go ahead.
Moved by Becky, is there a second?
Second.
Mark. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 6, announcements and correspondence. We have the Plan Commission meeting on Thursday, September 1st at 6:30 at the Richard Young Fire Station. On Labor Day, all town offices will be closed September 5th. Next town board meeting will be Monday, September 12th at 6:30 at the town hall. And then the sanitary sewer district number 1 meeting will be Wednesday, the 21st at 6:30 at the town hall. Does anyone else have any announcements or correspondence? Item 7 was the administrator report. We have it in here. Does anyone have any questions on it? We could read it out loud if you wish, otherwise,
Mm-mm.
everybody good with it? That in the record?
Yeah.
Item 8, the Lisbon Economic Conditions Update. Anyone have anything to report on this? Item 9, supervisor reports.
We had a sanitary district meeting last week. And we have some issues in the district and we're trying to work everything out. Apparently there's some. No, let's put it this way. We're doing a new, sending out some surveys for people to fill out for us. Okay, that's it.
Anyone else? Item 10, Plan Commission referrals. Discussion and necessary action on the request by Tony Zanon of Pinnacle Engineering for Mike Carrick Homes for approval of a final plat for Pheasant View Meadows subdivision for the property located at North 48 West 27368 Lindale Road, tax key LSBT 0268.999 in the R2 zoning district. Was approved at the Plan Commission on August 4th. Anyone have any questions or comments on the final plat?
Now, it's required now to have curb and gutters in new subdivisions? Could you
Not
explain?
necessarily
that?
required, it's usually just, they just do it.
They do it now?
They're those smooth curbs.
And what size lots are these? Just curious. Generally.
All 1 acre plus.
Well, it looks, yep, when I look at it, it's about 1 acre. Yeah,
31 lots.
yeah.
The smallest one in there, I don't think any of them are under an acre. Some of them
No.
are like 0.97 or something at
Yep.
times, but
Yep, okay.
lots 1 and 2, I think are the smallest, 43,605 on one and 43,635 in the other.
Gotcha.
Oh, 29, 30 and 31 are about the same size too.
Yeah, okay. No question, that's it.
Questions from anyone else? Is there a motion on the plat?
That would approve the final plat of Pheasant View Meadows.
Is there a second?
I second.
Linda, any final discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 11, unfinished business. A, discussion necessary action regarding American Rescue Plan Act expenditures. Anything to discuss tonight? I had one, actually, this is from a little while ago, a discussion about putting in down by the fire station. Potential of, we had talked about a while ago, help me, Joe, the holding tank. We had the shop drains over there and we had talked about it a while ago. Just one to consider, might be. Where's the one located now, Joe? It goes into the septic, doesn't it? This would be the fire department.
Which fire department?
Good hope.
Good
The
hope.
Highway shop is done and completed and working and functioning. This would be for the fire department at Good Hope Station 1. Similar situation, this is floor drains that we'd like to put into a tank and have pumped out periodically to.
You can't hook up to the other side for a septic system?
It's way through our brand new parking lot and a lot of stuff going on. Plus
Oh.
it's far, we're talking a couple 100 feet. This is where they could put the tank is 50 feet and they dump it right in there rather than. Unfortunately, ripping up the parking lot. So
Okay, now I got you.
it kind of came to light just when there was a clog and all of a sudden we fixed it late winter here and. Something that would make sense for the future and it would be one thing you do now and you never have to worry about it again.
Okay,
You get some more information on it if there'd be something potentially interested in doing.
We need to just because of bond or.
Because of the way that it's drained now, I think is improper, I guess would be the right way to say it. It just goes into the ground. So that was the reason why when we repaved the lot, we nipped all those French drains up and we put them into a tank. So now any kind of oil that drips off the truck and gets washed into the tank gets hauled away properly rather than just sitting on the ground, which is not a great idea.
Whenever they built that, they just,
You know, old school stuff.
yeah.
we fixed this on the highway department side.
Yeah.
Now the fire department side, it was usually just snow and everything that was draining off of it. Well, the highway department was a little bit different. But it's probably something we should be fixing.
We know the cost on it.
16, under
16.
17,000.
Oh,
And that's a 4,000 gallon tank installed, working. And just to compare the highway department's tank, we pump it out maybe 6 times a year at $130 a time.
well, they
So-
have a holding tank too?
We do, yeah. So,
Okay,
and then you figure how much snow runoff and melt we have in the winter, it only gets pumped. In summer, it's real quiet. It may be once through the summer just by washing stuff inside or whatever the case may be. Winter's a little more periodic, but
okay.
I mean, in the fire department, because you'll be washing a little bit, but I think it'd be minimal, and you're talking $130, they come pump that out very minimal. Once it's in there, it's one of those things that is, you're doing it right, and it's inexpensive to have taken out. All of it.
And we
Where
can,
where we hook up to the?
The pipe already comes out of the building underground, and then it's gravel right now, because when it clogged, we had to dig it out, we didn't, they had it dug up. So it's right there, they would just dig that up, it's already gravel. So
Is
it's
that on
easy to
the-
access. It'd be the east side towards Hillside Road,
the east side,
it'd be the
west side.
south, I'm sorry, southwest corner of the building, correct, towards Hillside, and then, it's in the ground there, they would just dig that up, tie into that pipe and carry it out another 40 feet to get away from some obstacles with the sanitary septic and some stuff, and then they'd put a tank in the ground and they would just come pump it out when the alarm goes off. The way we have it set in the highway, the alarm goes on at 3,000 gallons when it's full, and then there's a 1,000-gallon buffer there, so we have a little time to wait and then call in a guy. It's not ever an emergency.
Okay. So you knew this has been coming for a while.
It just happened with that late winter little incident, and Joe and I had a discussion, and then we thought this might be a time to do it.
And we can use that ARPA funds.
We could, and we could pay for it out of general, anyway, we want to do it, but I mean, we have some of the funds to do it. So we discussed, when we did the highway department side years ago, this was a discussion point, and then it completely got forgotten about. And then I remember, it was Mid-City that was over there digging it up, or who was it?
Cons Trenching, I think, did it this time at the fire, yeah.
And I kind of just
Mhm.
It's something
heard
that's gotta be
everything.
done.
and Joe
Yep.
and I were talking, and the conversation came up, I asked him to get a quote.
Yeah.
That's where we are.
And to compare, the highway departments has a little bit more distance, so there's more pipe involved and labor, obviously. But that was $20,000, and this quote is under 17, so I think the times, it's a very fair price, actually, with the
Is it this-
local contractor.
Is it the same company that you want?
That's who I got the quote from,
Yeah, yeah.
reputable, that
Okay,
works with the county and knows all the septic laws.
okay.
And would that possibly be done before this winter?
Well, so we just had the discussion that if we don't talk about it soon, it's probably gonna get kicked to next year, but if we could probably get on the list soon here, I think they said they
Yeah.
could do it.
So it's just something, I mean, we're not asking them.
I would do it. I would okay for it. It has to be done. Why not get going on it?
I mean, it's like an environmental hazard doing kind of what we're doing now, right, with the gray one.
Sure.
Could be. We
Yeah.
cannot confirm or deny that that ever.
They're making stuff.
Abated.
Yes. So we could have, bring something at the next board meeting. Everybody.
You
in favor
have
of
it,
Talking about
you have a quote in hand?
On my desk.
it. We'd have to approve it.
Sure.
It cannot be approved. tonight. But
Yeah, I was gonna
we
say,
bring it back as a potential.
and is there time to do it yet this year?
Well, I'll reach out to them this week, just see, and then if there is time, then on that, September 12th meeting, I think is the next one or whatever, I could get it on there, and then if they say, yeah, as long as you get it approved by the 12th, we could get it done this year, then I'll bring something for you guys on the 12th.
Perfect.
You wish to bring it next meeting?
Yes.
Paula, you're good with that?
Mhm.
Becky?
Definitely.
Okay, we'll bring it at the next meeting.
Okay.
Does anyone have anything else?
No.
Right. Item B is discussion necessary action regarding lease of 2 flock cameras. It's a table at the last meeting.
So I believe you guys got emailed to you the answers to all those questions that we had at the last meeting. If you don't have them, I can run through the questions and the answers that we got for you. Otherwise, I believe it was provided to Kathy, but I realize now she's on vacation. Okay, well, I can run through them real quick if you want me to. And then I don't know if you got this after the last meeting, but a citizen also sent in a letter with additional questions and I have the answers to those as well. So I can run through all of that real quick. From the questions that the board had after the last meeting. First one was who owns the data? The data is owned by Flock. They do not sell to third-party companies. And then the agency and the city have access or have the final say on who the data is shared with. They said most of the agencies in this area share their data with every agency in the state of Wisconsin. However, we could keep it as small as our agency or go as large as nationwide. How long is the data stored? The data is stored for 30 days in a AWS government cloud server. So it's a secure government approved cloud server. It can be downloaded by our agency for additional needs. If we have a prosecution, the case might not go through court for the next 30 days. We can download that data and we'll save it in-house for as long as we need it, but they only save those hits for 30 days. Who has access to the reads? Again, most agencies share within statewide, but that's up to the agency and the municipality to choose. Who oversees the plate checks? That was the example you gave, concerns that someone would be searching an ex-girlfriend or something similar to that. It is up to us if who has access to it. So each agency has access to that to basically create their own policies on that. They basically create roles within their software where different people have different access levels, where you can go in and read or edit users and all of that stuff, depending on the admin levels that they fill in. Flock themselves have the back end software that tracks all of the uses and when it's searched, and they can add that into their search bar. So they said most agencies require that you put in a report number for why you're putting in that search. So if we go back and say, hey, why was this search? It goes into, you can tie it back to this report it was searched for. And then they keep that data on their, the back end where we would have access to that if needed. The next question was, how long is that $2,500 per year cost good for? They said their standard contract that they do with most municipalities is 2 years. If you wanted a greater time frame, that could be extended if you wanted, but it's all based on that contract that you write. He said that he hasn't seen it go up in however long he's been working there. This was the law enforcement representative for Flock that answered these questions. Looking at some local municipalities that have this, I gave you the examples of Menominee Falls, Waukesha, and MPD. He also added to the list that Germantown, Grafton, Jackson, West Allis, Elm Grove, Fort Washington, Mequon, South Milwaukee, Brown Deer, and Hartford all have it. He said that's just who he knows off the top of his head, but there's probably more in this area. That was it for your questions. The citizen letter that we received about questions, some of them were very similar. The first question was, why do we believe we need this? Is call volume fluctuated? Our call volume stays relatively consistent. Sometimes there's spikes and certain things like entry to autos. We haven't had any spikes or anything like that recently, but that does fluctuate a little bit. The next question that the citizen had was, what indicates who has access to this data? And that is all through our ELPERS policy. We have a current ELPERS policy in place that governs the current software that we use through basically the squad mounted ELPERS that's run through Greenfield PD. So our policy would have to be amended to include Flock in that for the stationary cameras. But I don't see anything changing with who has access to that, where it would still be any hot lists have to be approved by a supervisor, and supervisors and detectives have access to search reads. Citizen also asked who has access and how is the data stored, and same thing, it's stored on the AWS government cloud server. They also asked how long the data is stored, which again is 30 days. And then how is it audited, how searches are made, and that's done through the back end system of Flock, as well as our policy of who actually has access to run those planes. Do you guys have any other questions that you've thought of since the last week or 2 weeks, I guess?
What is the additional cost again? $5,000?
It's $2,500 per camera, and then there was a one-time $300 installation fee.
20, so it's, so if we put two in, it's $5,000 up front
It was $5,000 per year.
per year.
Yep, it's a
Oh, I got you.
2,500 per camera subscription per year.
And why again, are you recommending two compared, like Sussex has got one?
Well, our goal was to get 4 for the area and have 2 from Sussex, 2 from Lisbon, so that between all 4 cameras, we can cover all entrances to both municipalities.
Now, has Sussex okay too, or we're just keeping it one?
Jeremy's on vacation this week. He's their administrator, so I haven't been in touch with him.
Mhm.
Talking to Captain Panish, he said it has been discussed and he's talked about it. It's very likely, but to the best of my knowledge, it hasn't officially been approved by their public safety board yet. Their last public safety meeting was canceled and rescheduled.
So if I understand it, if we're not using our two that, if we buy two, if Merton needs something, Heartland needs something, Sussex needs, you loan those out, correct?
No, these would be stationary permanently mounted cameras. This isn't
Oh,
like the
I gotcha.
speed study one. I think you're getting the two kind of mixed up.
You're right.
This is
I am.
permanent mounted on either like a light pole or stop signs or traffic signal, something like that, covering major intersections.
These are the ones that, so like we have license plate readers on our squad that just read the plates. This will actually read, supposedly can figure out what kind of car it was, the color, pickup truck,
Yeah,
sedan, so to say, and then the plate also.
okay.
And they're stationary mounted. Reads both traffic both ways. Actually, in a four-way intersection, it can read.
I'm not sure on that. I didn't ask that specific question, but there's a fairly high accuracy. I think it's like 98% for one-way traffic. And I think it drops a little bit if you're monitoring two-way traffic.
Is Richfield involved? I'm trying to think of municipalities around us.
Immediately in this area, I believe the closest ones were Germantown, Menominee Falls. I think the next closest to us would be probably Hartford, City of Waukesha, and then as you go out a little bit, to the north, Grafton, Jackson, Port Washington, and then in Milwaukee County, the city of Milwaukee, South Milwaukee, and Brown Deer.
Okay, thank you.
Paula? Questions or concerns or thoughts?
I mean, it seems that if we in Sussex get it, that'll be great, but no other towns right that border us on a lot of the other sides are gonna have it. There was actually a story that I heard on the radio today that Waukesha picked somebody up with this kind of technology.
Yes.
Yeah,
Waukesha's used a lot. If you go on their website or if you Google flock cameras, there's a lot of stories on success stories that they've had. Whether it's kidnappings, burglary suspects, you name it. But yes, to your point, in this immediate area, municipalities that border us, Germantown to the north, not West Penn, Menominee Falls to the east would be direct borders that are shared with other municipalities that have this.
Mhm. I think one of the problems that, I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
no,
Keep
that's
moving.
okay.
Because we're so spread out, and I can understand a city, or something like Sussex, obviously, Menominee Falls. But I don't know,
Here's the thing, 164 goes north, Waukesha State Bank gets robbed. The car's not in front, no cameras up there, but this car goes flying north in 164.
mhm,
These things can pick it off potentially, and then if there's other ones in the area, they can get hits, potentially, I'm assuming where this car is. To figure out where, I don't know if they're gonna work live and in conjunction like that, like it's very quick.
Yep. Yeah, we can go back and search reads basically immediately where it wouldn't be live, where I'd have to basically log onto it on my computer and I could search it real quick. Otherwise, if it's a vehicle that we've known, just last night, we had a pursuit in Menominee Falls of a stolen vehicle used in multiple armed robberies that drove past one of the cameras. They immediately got a hit. It goes to our dispatch center where they put it out to the squads in the area, check for this car. Our agency, along with the Falls, was in pursuit last night. We ended up terminating because the car was going in oncoming traffic and was a danger to the public. But we're able to get those real time of this is a known suspect vehicle. It's in our area.
from somebody who's had multiple vehicles stolen. Tell you, if we had a whole bunch of these, I mean, they probably, I mean, I don't know that they'd have manpower to find them all, but I mean, this is gonna be a real issue. I mean, more than getting, it's way past real issue. I mean, these people are stealing things left and right, and they don't care.
Yeah,
There's a way to maybe find some of that stuff. I mean, you got somebody, a child that goes missing and you got a car description, maybe you can find it. I am so back and forth on the Big Brother versus is it beneficial thing. And I'm not a Big Brother person by any means, but this one just does kind of hit home a little bit, I guess.
And they have taken even farther compared to like our current system. Our data is stored for 1 year with our current Alpers hits, and theirs, they cut it off. They said, we don't want that. 30 days, they cut it off. And they took a pretty strong stance on that we want to basically try to nip the crime in the bud to get rid of this problem, but not, like you said, have that Big Brother factor where we're saving your data for years.
What do you think, Becky?
I just can't see it being worth $2,500 a year. I mean, you put one on 164, the car goes zipping by. It's notified. By the time you get here, you have no clue where it went, because there's nobody north of them until you get cars that have one. So what, I mean, if you get one hit every 6 months, I just don't think that right now is something that would help us at all.
I do think our biggest benefit to this would be, even if you give that example of 164 and County Line, if we get a hit of a stolen vehicle coming southbound, who knows where they're going in the town? But if I have a deputy who happens to be right at the substation and they can get Main Street to 164 and wait for that vehicle to come southbound, our likelihood of finding those cars coming into the municipality is a lot greater than leaving. And I think that's the main purpose of this, is so deal with the problem while it's in our area, not to notify outside agencies.
And Becky, maybe to address your question, you don't have to have the system to be involved in the activity. Like for your example, you're worried about Hartford being the next person to intercept the car. There's police in between there through Washington County. And the rest of Waukesha County is gonna be alerted. So generally the way it works is somebody will get maybe an alert on their phone. And then the officer then can put it on the radio to all squads. And also too, there's a lot of people that monitor scanner traffic. They may call it back into the dispatch center. Hey, I just saw this car at 164 and Plain. You know, or maybe there's a fire apparatus out on the road. They're gonna hear it too. So it's not, you don't have to just be a flock user to intercept that data, if that makes sense. Once somebody is alerted to it, who is a user, they can push it out to everybody. It's almost, I guess the way I think of it is a neighborhood block watch in its infancy. Say that 2 people start a neighborhood block watch. Well, those people may have jobs, or they may sleep, they may go to activities outside their house. So with 2 people, it's not gonna be very effective, but now they start recruiting 15, 20 other neighbors to help in the block watch. Now you can split up the activity and you'll have more eyes out in the neighborhood. So these cameras, I'm also considering the community I work in. The more and more people you put into the block renting system, the better it's going to be. I short term, I'm a proponent of it. I just don't know that we know enough long term, but I also go back to when we put Alpers on our town car. We didn't know anything long term about the success of Alpers at that point. I guess we've proven that it's been a reliable system and it's useful for the car driving. This one, you don't have to have a car attached to it, a squad car. You put it in a specific location and, you know, it reads what it can read. It's not an officer driving past a car and a car driving past an officer's squad. So I also did have the Big Brother concern that the chairman shared too. And you know, again, I went back to the lower retention. I actually had my detective walk me through the system and showed me how. He put in a plate, he has to have a reason to put a plate in, he can't just pick the chairman's truck and decide that he's gonna put that in the system and mess with the chairman every time somebody uses, like, it would be traced back to someone, there has to be an authority behind it. So. I definitely would be in favor of it. I guess the thing I like about this is that I'm satisfied with the short term on it, and I think this is a way where we can get into it in the short term and see the effects of it. And we could ask, the sheriff's office to report back to us on success stories in our community or around our community, or, there could be success stories from Wauwatosa solving a crime because of a pilot in our community. It's not limited to just cars and work done by sheriff's office.
So we could potentially, like, let's say we approve this for a year, they could potentially come back. I don't know, is there a way to tell, like, if it was hit on ours? Did this help anywhere? I mean, actually show,
Yeah, because we have our own hot list, so if we have a certain vehicle of, this one vehicle has done, using the County Line and 164 example. This vehicle done 10 retail thefts or gas skips at the new Quick Trip. We want to find this car, we want to be notified every time this car is in that area. We add that on our hot list, not only us, but every other agency is notified of that as well. So that car drives past our camera or drives past the camera in the falls, we'll be notified of that. And if they stop out with the car and, hey, now we have our suspect in custody for a retail theft, we'll get that information as well.
Have you talked to the areas surrounding, like Heartland? Have you talked to Merton? They're just not interested? Jack's, Slinger?
The areas that don't have it. In this area, Lisbon and Sussex for our area. These are the two biggest communities, so we will, I'm sure eventually be bringing it out to Merton. They're just not a larger community like you guys are with, bigger access points to the community, where here, County Line and 164 is a huge intersection, or even you think of County Line and Lisbon, that's a huge intersection with a ton of vehicle traffic, where you don't have those in some of these other communities.
Where do, you said Sussex has one now?
Sussex does not have any now.
No, I'm sorry.
It's going through approval for their board for 2 of them.
Okay, I got you. Confusing the other one with this then. I guess I just, and Mark, I know you feel very strongly about it, and I guess I'm just not sure if I'm ready to vote on.
Okay.
Personally.
when, I mean, this could be done at any time, correct?
Yes.
This isn't.
This isn't a time sensitive thing. Like I said, if you're looking for some success stories, I was just doing a little more research in the last few days, and there was a video I was looking that was actually like one of their media pitches with their CEO. But just going through there, all the recommended videos were success stories from a bunch of communities nationwide, but a few in our area. There's even said one from Waukesha not too long ago.
Did you mention the Brookfield or?
I don't believe Brookfield
You
has
said
it right
Pewaukee
now.
doesn't have, right, Mark?
Pewaukee does not have it yet.
And does Brookfield have it?
Brookfield's not on my list. I don't have a full list of all of them in the state. When we talked to the guy we talked to, Kyle, he's the rep for our area. Basically, he's the law enforcement rep. This is just municipalities that have them that he knew off the top of his head. So yeah, he could give me a full list.
So if Sussex did approve them and we approved them, I'm assuming you guys would strategically place them based
Yeah,
on
the final say comes down to the municipality of us talking to you of where we think we should put them. But Flock would, based on their years of doing this, would look at the community and the map and say, this would be our recommendation. And then we can either take their recommendation or say, well, from working here, I think this would be a better intersection.
I think I would like to see some success stories. I mean, what, how often does it work?
I can reach out to Menominee Falls and see what kind of success stories they've had. I think they'd probably be the closest municipality, either them or Germantown.
And how many cameras do they have?
I don't know, I'd have to check.
Who's that?
Falls.
15.
15.
15?
They have 15 of these? They're the same size dimensions that we are.
Yeah, but they're, yeah,
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 Yeah.
well, if you figure with Sussex in the middle, it's only,
I mean, and they have a. Just
what are they, about 36,000 and we're the Sussex 25?
I believe only one of the falls, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe only one of the falls cameras is funded by a private business. Woodman's pays for one of the cameras to be right in front of their store.
Good idea.
mhm.
That one probably gets the most hits out of everyone in the area.
Yeah, I mean, eventually I see HOAs putting this on their entrances to their condo complexes. or subdivisions.
That's actually how it started. It started as basically a neighborhood watch program where this guy created it and it was put in a couple neighborhoods where their HOAs paid for them, and then it's grown to their first agency order was a police chief that said, hey, I've heard success stories in these two communities. I want to buy 50 of them for my city.
I guess the way I look at it is we only have one officer, all shift, 24 hours a day. Assigned directly to our communities. It's just an extra tool to record possible things that are gonna help solve crime. There's plenty of success that we can, I mean, obviously it's their posting on their website, the Flock does post their success stories. And there's plenty of them. I mean, it can even be something non-criminal, as far as. It's an abducted child would be criminal.
A runaway.
I think the problem that we have that's limiting in the healthcare system is the healthcare system needs a plate to, or it needs to have like a numeric on the car that would be identified. Versus this one, the blue Chevy apologized by it, that was a blue Chevy Impala. You know, my detective was showing me today, they had armed purse snatches that were going on in Milwaukee, and he actually pulled up the car and it had the kids, the criminal hanging out the window. And it took the picture clear as day. So Alfred would never do that.
It's just plates.
Alfred is just looking. You know, we talked years ago about adding helpers back to our second spot, and I don't think that ever happened.
It's on both.
It's on both.
Yeah, it's on, I believe it's on both Lisbon, both Sussex, and then there's actually a proposal to add that as well for the.
So it appears we have two that are not ready, one not ready to vote yet. I think we have two that are, and we have.
Not yet.
Is there any other
Three that
question
are
that you
not ready.
have that you want me to bring back answers for, as well as success stories in our community? Or in our area, I should say.
Can I ask, what is the chase policy? Is there, like, if it gets high speed, you guys have to break off, or is that discretion of the officer? What is that?
It's always up to the officer initially, and then any supervisor can terminate any pursuit as well. But the biggest thing is weighing the risk to the community versus the reward of catching whatever you're trying to catch. Are we gonna chase a car for a taillight out? Probably not. Are we gonna chase a car like the one yesterday was stolen vehicle that's been used in multiple armed robberies? It's a little more easy to justify chasing that one.
Right.
Thank you.
All right, so I guess at that point, we're looking for more. How long do you think you might need to?
I can reach out to the falls in the next couple of days, and then I will also reach out to Sussex and see where they're at in their process as well.
Next meeting or month?
I could probably do the next meeting. Is that you said the 16th?
Someone like to make a motion to table it to the 12th?
I'll make a motion to table.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Becky. No discussion on the table. All in favor?
Hi.
Aye. Opposed? Carried unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item C is discussion necessary action regarding CDBG pedestrian and bike path ramp.
as you may remember, last meeting, the one bid for the path was a little excessive from what we thought. So, an option that we came up with, which I think is kind of a no-brainer, would be to go in front of the CDBG board, which is the group that gave us the $75,000 grant. On September 14th, Mitch and I would attend that meeting, and what we'll do is we'll ask for an extension of the construction of the project. Apparently, I don't have much involvement with it, but it was done with the Business Park East project for us here, and they asked for an extension, and they liked that idea rather than, you know, some other crazy idea of not doing it or whatever. They were willing to do that knowing it was gonna happen. So what we would ask is that we would rebid the project immediately after that. And potentially, due to the fact that a lot of the contractors like to fill out their schedules for the following year early, you'd get more bids than one. And then we'd have some competitive bids. We could revisit it at that point and award it within 22, but construction would be in 23. And that's what we would ask the board to let happen. And if they don't like that idea and all that good stuff, we have till October 2nd. So I can come to the second board meeting in September with the answers from this meeting with them. And if you guys like that idea, we can put it out the bid then right away in October to rebid it, potentially award it in 22. If you don't like that idea and you want to just follow through with the Pablaki bid, that bid is good until October 2nd. So it's kind of a win-win here. We're not gonna get ourselves into a pickle if we waited and let me go to that meeting.
Where is this meeting? In Madison?
No, it's Waukesha County area. I
Waukesha.
tried the courthouse. I guess I didn't look that deep, but I know it's in Waukesha.
Okay, thank you.
Last time it was on Zoom because of the pandemic, but now it'll be in person.
So. Becky,
I think that sounds good.
Paula?
Yeah.
Linda?
Yes,
Mark? We're gonna do that.
I hear you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Good work.
Item 12, new business, A, discussion necessary action regarding Waukesha County IGA recycling agreement.
We've got Annalise Smith from Waukesha County on Zoom, and she has a brief presentation for us. So Annalise, I am going to let you take over.
All right, thank you so much. And I'm just going to share my screen to share a couple of slides.
Got it.
All right, so thank you so much for having me tonight. I'm excited to be with you virtually. And again, my name is Annalise Smith, and I'm the Recycling and Solid Waste Supervisor for Waukesha County. I've been in this role for about 4 years, and previous to that, I had a similar role for the city of Milwaukee. So I've been in the industry for a little bit, and over the next 10 slides or so, I'm excited to share this new dividend program. The plan is I'll cover the history of the program, how we got to the point we're at today, and then review the new dividend program at a very high level. And then, of course, I'll look forward to answering any questions that you may have regarding it. So overall, the Waukesha County is the responsible unit for the administration of the state's recycling law. Specific to this group here, the town of Lisbon joined in 1990 via a resolution. And then the program was off and running. Pretty immediately, the county had its own material recovery facility, or MRF for short. And that was a dual stream program. So you might remember needing to keep your paper separate from your bottles and cans. In 2001, the economics of that program were in such a place that the county was able to start paying dividends to the 25 municipalities that were in the program. And that just kind of kept the program going until 2014. But in 2014, we realized that the facility that the county owned was aging, and the city of Milwaukee was in a similar situation with aging infrastructure. A lot of studies were done. And at that time, it was decided to partner with the city of Milwaukee to make a more regional program that would allow for a single stream recycling facility which is why we can now mix our bottles and cans together. And there are a lot of efficiencies that are gained through that system on the collection end, because you're maximizing your trucks, load weights and things to that nature. So in 2014, that partnership with the city of Milwaukee started. And at that point, we also created IGAs with the communities to really cover that program and make sure everybody understood what the dividend structure looked like at that time. So from there, we continued on with the program. And then unfortunately, there were some global market changes that really hit in 2018 and just started causing problems in the industry. I'll go over those a bit on the next slide. But then that ceased the dividend payment in 2019. So 2019 was the last dividend payment made. Things are now recovered to a point where we feel we can start making dividend payments again. So we're back with a new plan, just to make sure that everyone is on the same page about what that new dividend program would look like. And then just wanted to share some personalized stats for the town. Last year, the town had 1,074 tons of recyclables. And what that means in rough economic terms is if you had to pay to landfill those tons, it would have been $86,000. So there was a savings of almost $86,000 in landfill costs. So again, the MRF fund is what drives all of the economics of this. For the program, and again, 25 municipalities included, the MRF fund is an enterprise fund, so there is no tax levy in this program. The program is funded by a state grant once a year of a little bit less than $1 million, and then the sale of those recyclables that are from the communities. What this then pays for is the processing costs and residue. Residue is the non-recyclables that people put in their recycling carts that doesn't belong there. So everything from chip bags, which aren't that bad, but don't belong there, to propane tanks, which definitely don't belong in your recycling cart and also can cause big problems, safety issues, fires, things like that. So the processing costs are those costs associated with our private operator operating the equipment, sorting the materials, and then getting them to market. And then the residue is disposing that of landfill. Again, just to put it in big picture perspective, for the town of Lisbon, for give or take those 1,000 tons that were recycled last year, that was about $62,000 in costs. The MRF fund then also pays for other recycling programs, things like education programs, composting things, all sorts of different stuff, and then future MRF upgrades. So talking about automation, making sure that our equipment is keeping up with the changing packaging and changing industry needs. So again, just wanted to give that historical perspective here. So when we initially created that contract, IGA with the city of Milwaukee, the historic 10-year average for what a ton of recyclables was paid for, we call that ACR. The 10-year average was $110 per ton. And so we made the business model at using a more conservative $100 a ton to make this whole business model work. And that included those dividends. But again, in 2018, 2019, 2018 specifically, China instituted some new laws that really shook up the entire markets. And you can see that that average ACR dropped from $110 per ton down to $84 per ton. Meanwhile, because of the industry changing, it actually became more expensive to make recyclables to the high level of quality that the system was demanding. So we were getting paid less, but had to pay more. Again, and two, residue has been going up. So more people are putting the wrong things in their cart. So you'll have noticed a lot of educational things that we're focusing on just to ensure residents understand what does not belong in their cart, because that really is a bottom line impact to our program. So overall, what did those changes have to the fund balance? Well, you can see in 2015, we were starting over $6 million in the fund. And as those market hits kept coming, and as we continued to pay out very high dividends, the fund balance kept going lower and lower and lower until we were at that critical point in 2019 where we had to suspend dividends. Now you can see, however, though, the chart is looking a little bit better in the more recent history. We have seen a rebound and a stabilization of the markets, which is very exciting, which is why we feel confident that we're ready to discuss bringing that dividend program back. So with that, I'd like to turn and look at what the specifics of the new dividend program are. So again, we wanted to create a model that lessens the impacts of those markets' highs and lows. We want to make sure that everybody knows what they can count on and what they can budget for without a lot of guessing. In the same moment, we also want to provide new incentives for partnering, educating, and providing clean tons to the program, because we know just how impactful clean tons are to that overall system to make sure it's working as well as it can. And last but not least, no one in the industry saw 2018 coming, and now we know better. You know, if we could go back to 2014 and create the program in that way a little bit more sustainably, we certainly would have. So we want to use the lessons that we've learned over the past few years to create a more sustainable and resilient recycling program that continues to not use tax levy to fund it. So we brought together the best and brightest of our community partners. We really worked hard to keep everybody in the loop and get feedback throughout the process, starting in the winter of 2021 on what a new dividend program could look like. We talked at our annual meeting with all of our communities. From their communities joined a recycling work group if they were willing and able. And we also worked with national consultants that really see the big picture of recycling, the recycling industry, to ensure that we were meeting those goals of creating a resilient, sustainable model. So the basic parameters of the new dividend program would be tied, and I really can't emphasize this enough, to actual audited financial results. The old dividend program, we just guessed, kind of estimated what a good dividend amount would be in years prior, and it wasn't tied to actual performance. So when there were changes in actual performance, the dividend amount that was being paid out was not adjusted. So this new program is directly tied to an audited annual positive cash flow. When the dividend MRF balance is above $3.5 million, any positive cash flow would be paid out to the communities as a dividend. To combat or reduce the impact of markets highs and lows, between $3.1 million and $3.5 million, there would be neither a dividend nor a fee. And then if the fund were to dip below $3.1 million, there would be a tipping fee that would be passed back to the communities based on a per household fee. So the dividend program itself, there are 4 components that would go into that dividend factor. The first would be 50% of the dividend would be based on the program costs borne by a municipality in the program. And that would calculate out what portion of the dividend they would be eligible for based on their costs. The next 35%, and I should say, sorry, if you are familiar with the previous IGA and dividend program, this is a similar setup to those program costs. The next 35% would be based on the number of households in a community and their relative distance from the joint MRF. which is down in the Menominee Valley in by Marquette in Milwaukee. So again, going back to the original IGA, this is looking at that cart fee and distance from the MRF, trying to encapsulate the goals for that portion of the original IGA in this piece. The next portion, 7.5% of the dividend would be allocated based on providing additional recycling services. Some municipalities go above and beyond for their residents, and even above and beyond by providing some services to all residents in Waukesha County. For example, e-waste events are a popular one. If you have a community paper shredding event, if you collect recyclables at a town or village or city hall, things to that nature, those additional recycling services help your residents ensure that they're not contaminating their recycling cart. And so we just want to encourage and help offset some of the costs by recognizing that contribution with a small portion of the dividend. And last but not least, because contamination is such a big impact on the program, partnering with the county and collaborating on educational outreach and opportunities would be another 7.5% of the dividend. I do want to point out that the county already does offer a lot of free recycling education. For example, I was in a staff meeting today and we were talking about the upcoming tax bill inserts. These are provided to any community that wants them at zero cost. And so this education collaboration piece is not about a community going off and doing new big things by themselves. It's really about taking advantage of the things that the county is already doing, offering to host a some of our signage, you know, at the town hall is another popular thing that some communities have done. Helping connect us with schools, the schools where your students are attending, so that we can go in and do K-12 education. Just helping facilitate that to make sure that we're reaching the residents is really what we're looking for there. So that's the how the dividend itself would be broken out. I do want to address the questions about if the fund dips below the floor, and that is a big if. So if the MRF fund floor is below $3.1 million, there would be a fee based on actual losses. And again, this is audited financials, and it would be calculated for a fee by a per household. And I just want to point out that our program has never needed to charge a tipping fee, and programmatically, that's pretty rare. So we are not, this is not a when, this is truly an if, but we wanted to make sure that we had both sides of the equation in this new agreement for those sustainability purposes. Our biggest loss year in recent history was $134,000. And if that did occur again, it would, if we were at 3.5 million, that would not even drop us to below the 3.1 million floor. If we were already at the floor and we did have to absorb that $134,000 in losses, calculated out using today's household numbers, it would approximately be $1.41 per household. And so just using some rough math to give you a big picture look at what that fund or what that fee could be based on some actual recent numbers that we have. And I will say that with the IGA draft that you have seen and that has been shared with you, we have since received feedback and are revising that draft to change the timing of this notification for either the dividend payment or a tipping fee. So we're going to pivot to skip year accounting. So right now we've completed auditing our 21 books. At that point, I would incorporate whatever gains or losses from 2021 were included and we would budget that to be paid out in 2023. So there would be no crystal ball, there would be no hypotheticals. It would just be a notification of what the dividend payment would be prior to you creating your own budget, so that you could incorporate the exact payment or cost into your budget for the following year. So with that, that's really all. That's the high level look at the dividend program. And with that, I'd love to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions from the board? Becky, anything?
No, I don't have.
Paula?
Yeah, what causes market highs and lows? You said that there could be fluctuation. What causes those market highs and lows?
So it's a lot of supply and demand. Right now, we are seeing, so in 2018, what caused a lot of the lows is that China turned off the faucet on what they were purchasing and accepting. They were trying to jumpstart a lot of recycling efforts in their own country. And so that had ripple effects across the globe. What we are seeing now in a lot of the resiliency of the markets is that a lot of brand owners are incorporating recycled material into their products. So you'll see a lot more often now, made of recycled material. And that directly ties back to your local recycling facility that is then able to sell those materials at a higher, more competitive cost.
So is the recycling still going to China, or is that being done in the US?
So I should say, in Waukesha County, we never sold materials to China. Typically the West Coast sold a lot more of their stuff there, just because of shipping and proximity, things to that nature. So that was never where our material was going. Our stuff stays fairly local, but when China turned off the faucet, all of the places that were going to China had to find other homes, and then they were competing with us for our local markets. I would say China is somewhat accepting more material back now, and even more so than China, we've seen other Southeast Asian countries as well as India increase their demand. So I would say the market took a few years to regulate itself, as markets do. And now there is a more diverse demand internationally. But again, Waukesha County stuff is pretty much staying regional.
Okay, great, thank you.
I'm a little confused. Could you tell me, I know you kept saying that we're going to be sharing costs and all this other stuff. What is the cost just to get going on this for the town of Lisbon?
There are no upfront costs.
No upfront costs. Okay. So what does it cost to continue with it then? You said that
So-
you get the fees and, all this other stuff, dividend in 2023. But overall, what would be Lisbon's cost?
So again, we've never charged Lisbon for this program. We make our money based on selling the recyclables that come into the system and that state grant. And historically, we've been able to pay the town of Lisbon over $700,000 in dividends. That's from 2001 to 2019. The sum total was over $700,000. So it's just locking in that formula to make sure everybody really understands how those dividends are being calculated, what thresholds we have for those dividends. And then if there would be a time where the program itself dipped below that floor, we would already have an agreement of what creating that fee would look like.
What brought about this change though, then? That we have to commit ourselves, to go into this program.
Yeah, so again, the recycling program itself Lisbon has been a part of since 1990, and that was by resolution.
Right, I saw that, I read that.
And now, so this is really just looking at making sure everyone's clear about how we share the financials. Since we're getting back to that point where we can share them. For the first 13 years of the dividend program from 2001 to 2013, there was no IGA that dictated how we shared back those dividends. So I think we just want to be proactive and make sure everyone understands.
Is there a difference between us being a town and becoming a village?
There is not.
No, okay, thank you.
I should say, not to my knowledge, I'm not a lawyer. The formula for me would look the same regardless.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I had a few questions. So the MRF fund cap is gonna stay at 3.5 until the expiration in 2030. Is that the way I read it?
Yes, we would have the ability to change that cap based on if something happened, right? So the reason that we have that 3.5 fund cap is because that's what the consultants helped us understand we would need if there was like a fire and we have to go, and I mean a serious fire where we need to find alternate processing for a year while our facility is getting rebuilt. In those critical emergency situations, 3.5 million is what 3.1 million actually is what we've been told we really need to have in that rainy day fund to make sure that we can have business continuity. If something would change, if we totally automated the facility before 2030, we might need to change that 3.5 million threshold. But we don't anticipate doing that.
And then is the work group, is that a advisory group at all?
Yes.
Are they done?
Oops, sorry, I missed the last thing you said. I'm sorry.
But is the work group, was that just an advisory to kick this off, or are they going to be continuing as advisory to the program continuing on?
So we work really closely with all of our community participants. We do annual meetings and we probably ask them for their feedback more than they wish we would. So this recycling advisory group was brought together from that larger group just to help us advise and sift through all the data specific to this project. And any changes that would need to happen with the dividend, they would give us that ongoing feedback throughout the term. That being said, it's completely voluntary and we're always happy to bring new people into the conversation. So we have people that want to be a part of that conversation, and then we update everyone regardless of their participation in that work group through our annual meeting and our bi-monthly newsletter updates to the municipal staffs.
Is there any push to have input from townships in that work group?
We did, so one community did ask that they had an elected official participate. Unfortunately, that person was, the stuff that we were getting into was really, really technical. So one community asked us for that and person was included.
I do have a quick, can I just say something real quick? Looking on the dividend timing, Annalise, on the very bottom where it says June 23, it says dividend check / invoices mailed. Are you talking about the invoices in case it comes so low that you have to bill us? Is that what you're talking about there?
Yes.
Okay.
And then again, that is the piece that is being edited in the revised draft. to where it would be that skip year. So you would receive that, you would receive a notification of what the dividend amount or the fee would be a year prior so that you could include it in your budget. So I'm currently finalizing my budget for 2023, and I'm including, assuming all of these IGAs are approved and all of that, I would be including the payout of the dividend based on how we finished in 2021.
Becky, do you have any-
I do, just one other quick question. You had mentioned like the contamination issue quite a bit in your presentation. If we made an effort in Lisbon to get people to do that properly, would that be a benefit to us?
Yes, and that would fall into that 7.5% education coordination collaboration piece of the dividend.
Okay, 'cause I can honestly say I don't remember ever seeing anything about like what goes into my recycling or not at my house. So just as an aside for us, maybe. Okay, thank you.
I guess I got a couple questions. So when businesses recycle with their dumpsters, is that part of this, the recycling end of the dumpster? 'Cause we don't.
Business,
Go ahead.
sorry, businesses are not a part of this program explicitly. Their material goes elsewhere. However, they are required to recycle, and when we get anonymous complaints that a business is not recycling, my office gets to go help them come into compliance.
Okay. So the other question is, so like with we have a contract right now with a hauler. I don't know if this is something we're supposed to be doing or something the county monitors or what, but compliance with the haulers. Like I have myself, maybe not in our community, but I've seen where a truck comes through and they end up just throwing everything in the back of one truck. And I know there's two separate areas, but I know on a few occasions, I've actually had some residents complain too, where recyclables went they very, very clearly went in the wrong side.
Mhm.
How is that monitored? Is that the county? Is that something we should be doing?
So that does fall under our county ordinance for haulers to making sure that they're doing their job, right? Because it's a part of a system. And so whenever there's one misstep in that entire system, whether it's someone putting the wrong thing in the cart going in the wrong part of the truck, or some other kind of misstep along the way that hurts the whole system. So we do definitely have ordinances and can participate in ensuring that is resolved. I would say sometimes we have needed to investigate. We've heard complaints or people with their Ring doorbells, we've seen video. And so we work collaboratively with the hauler to ensure what we're seeing is what makes sense. If the cart was contaminated to such a point, over 20%, the hauler may make the decision to throw the contaminated recyclables in the garbage, because if there's something dangerous in there, it can't come to the recycling facility. But those are few and far between. And so we want to make sure we fully understand what's going on and then come up with a plan to fix it. So if you know of something, that would definitely be something that you could engage my office in rectifying.
I guess it comes down to how is that even policed? Is it policed only through residents complaining? I mean, I know why they're doing it. I mean, everybody's short on manpower. It's a very small section in the back of these trucks for recyclables. The recyclables get full and they just start throwing them on the other side. I mean, I've watched it with dumpsters where they have emptied both dumpsters and like big full-size dumpsters they lift over. I have watched them empty recyclables in the same truck. Now, I know that's a business, but I was asking in relation to that is whether or not that money actually comes back to the community, which you're telling me it doesn't. They go to some other facility, which sounds weird to me, but okay. But I mean, as far as policing, if it's something we should ask our residents to be doing, or if this is something the county actually actively looks for.
I would say in this situation, we do rely on complaints.
Is there fines to the haulers for this, or is it just slap on the risk them, don't do that again.
So in my time, we have not had to get to that level with a hauler, but we do have the enforcement capabilities to do that, so.
Because obviously that affects the dividend we may or may not get. I have a feeling if we look back at, you know, with the different, during the pandemic, did it increase or decrease? I guess I don't know, but. Well, any other questions from anyone?
Is this just, I have a question for, because some municipalities, when you live in an apartment, and I know the town of Lisbon doesn't have apartments per se, but are they exempt from not splitting recyclables and their garbage?
So apartments, and this all comes from, I mentioned, we get a grant from the state. So what we can and cannot include in our program is feeding from that state grant designation, where they exclude businesses, and any apartment building with 5 units or more is actually considered a business under state recycling law. So again, so the 5+ units would be required to recycle, would not come into the municipal program. And again, I would say of all of the complaints we receive, the majority are multifamily units, not either knowing how to recycle or having enough recycling.
Okay, thank you.
Anything from anyone else? So this is a 7-year contract that goes to 2030. So everybody feel ready to,
Do we need the attorney to look at this?
assuming this would have been looked at by the attorney before it came before us, but you know if it has or not.
I know that Attorney Macy did look at it. Annalise, will you correct me if I'm wrong? I believe that the IGA was drafted with participation from multiple communities, including someone from Macy's office, correct?
Correct. I don't know if Attorney Macy provided feedback on it, but I know an attorney in his office was solicited for feedback.
Okay, thank you. I do know that Attorney Macy has seen it. I just didn't receive his comments.
When,
Letter. An email with a letter from him. With his comments on it. I read it.
Were they considered then? His comments?
I don't know. I thought they were a little nit.
And Annalise, you also said that this is not the final version of the IGA, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Oh, so we didn't have to.
so this wouldn't be the one that we would adopt.
What is our alternative if we don't do this?
this presentation,
Is what?
this is just a presentation. I thought, I didn't, it's been a while since I read the item. We don't have to say yes or no tonight, but if there's any concerns or questions, we would
Yep.
want to share them with her at this
Perfect.
point. Anything from anyone?
Mm-mm.
All right. Well, that should do it then. Anything else from you, Annalise?
No, thank you for the opportunity. And I'm happy when we've got the final draft. If you need anything else from me, just we can communicate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Your turn.
Item B, discussion, I'm sorry, that was a discussion, that's our action. I skipped down to B, presentation on upcoming TID bonding request timeline and forecast by John Cameron from Ellers.
Good evening, everybody.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, John.
Okay, good evening, everybody. John Cameron with Ellers. And what I have before you this evening is really just informational at this point. I think it really is starting to just kind of set the stage for your September meeting, where we'll be coming back with a formal request for action to start the borrowing process. So I'll walk through just very preliminarily tonight the estimated sizing of the financing and really what it's related to and how it impacts and feeds into the cash flow analysis for tax incremental finance district number one, and talk timeline, and then happy to answer questions as I go along. So as I'm rambling along, just feel free to stop me if you have any questions. Really what we're here to discuss this evening is the potential upcoming sale of general obligation promissory notes in the amount of $2,215,000 for really the final stage of infrastructure work within your tax incremental finance district number one, which is primarily the former Leeds Nursery property. So the cost itself is, as I understand it, is primarily for road extension as well as the final extension of utilities to allow really what is actually planned to be kind of the last phase of development within that TID. So I know Kathy has been very hard at work over the last year to the district's success. And we actually just kind of presented the current status of the tax increment district as well as what is planned for within the TIF over the next year and a half in terms of build out to the joint review board at the end of last week and gave an overall status report as is required annually under state statute. So this was talked about during that meeting, but in 2021, the town did a borrowing in the amount of $3,360,000 for the first phase of infrastructure improvements. This is the second phase of infrastructure improvements coming in later this fall. With towns are limited under state statutes in terms of length of financing. You're limited to no more than 10 years, so that would put you under promissory notes. Anything over than 10 years would be considered bonds. Towns have a limitation that if you go directly to the issuance of bonds, you have to do so through direct referendum of the voting population. So what most municipalities do, most townships do 10-year promissory notes or less. So in this case, you'd be looking at a 10-year promissory note. At the end of that 10-year period, there is remaining principal that's left on it, or balloon payment that's left on it. You'd have to either refinance that debt and extend that out another up to 10 years. In this case, it would be less than that based on the remaining life of the tax increment district, or if there is available cash within the tax increment district, you could turn around and either significantly downsize what you're refinancing, pay off a bunch with available cash and finance the rest, or if you have cash to pay it off entirely at that time. And that's kind of what's shown on this first page. So you see 4 different financings. The one on the far left is what you did in 2021. It's estimated that would be there's remaining principal balance in 2031 that will need to be refinanced with that at that time. This is happening here this fall. I'll talk timeline in just a second, and then possibly refinanced again in 2032 based on the remaining principal balance. From a timeline standpoint, what we're proposing is to come back before you at your September meeting, September 12th. At that meeting, you'd have a resolution seeking authorization to move forward with the sale of the promissory notes. Really what you would be doing at your next meeting is authorizing us as your municipal advisor to move forward with the sale of the notes. The sale would occur in October your October meeting. Usually the note sale happens on the day of a town board meeting. It just so happens that your October town board meeting falls on Columbus Day. So the markets are closed on Columbus Day. So what we'd also be proposing at your September 12th meeting is that you adopt what's called a parameters resolution. And a parameters resolution are quite common out in the marketplace. There's a number of municipalities that do it. And what that allows is a certain set of parameters to be adopted by the town board, an interest rate no higher than X, bond sizing by maturity no higher than a certain dollar amount between blocks, call date of such and such date. As long as those parameters are met by the winning bidder, it allows the town to conduct the note sale on a night that, or on a day that does not coincide with your town board meeting. So we do parameters resolutions quite a lot during the spring months when we know that there's a lot of bond or note sales out in the open marketplace, and we're trying to move a sale to a day where we know that there's not going to be as much competition out there, trying to give certain municipality the best chance at a favorable bidding climate. We also do it during times like this where, for whatever reason, Martin Luther King Day, Columbus Day, et cetera, Monday after the Super Bowl, believe it or not, where markets are either closed or we know that there's going to be, like in the Monday after the Super Bowl, significant bidding, fewer bidders out in the market. So again, it is quite common. But this just gives you an estimated sizing, 2,215,000. The second page is the cash flow analysis. And this really was the cash flow analysis that was presented to the annual joint review board during the annual joint review board meeting last week. What this shows is the current historical and then projected revenues and expenses for tax incremental district number 1 based on the current amount of increment within the district. The district did have a very good year this year in terms of the recognition of the Wyckoff building and that coming online here during this past year, recognized as of January 1st, 2022 in terms of new value. And then there's a number of different buildings that are going to be constructed in 2023 with guaranteed increment payments in 2024. And then really the regular increment payments start in 2025 and beyond. Right now, the district has a maximum life of 2040 under state statutes. It was created back in 2018 and has not been amended to date. So if you look at the columns in green, that is the first column for 2021, 2022. Those are your actual tax incremental revenues. Next year in 2023, that's based on the value that was added in 2021. So now valued as of January 1st, 2022. And we've applied your current tax rate to that figure. So next year will be about 106,000 of total tax increment revenue that you'll get. The final tax rates obviously will be set this fall for next year. So that may change plus or minus a little bit. You had debt proceeds coming in 2021. You'll have more proceeds coming in 2022. You also had what you would call development guarantee payments. So the development guarantees that you have in place with Wyckoff, and then what you're looking at in terms of the other development agreements that are executed with the other entities that are going to be locating within the tax increment district calls for payments on specific dates, regardless if their building is constructed or not. In the world of tax incremental finance, there's always a 2-year lag from the time that development goes into the ground to the time that you actually get tax incremental revenue. So if a building is constructed in 2022, it's valued by the assessor as of January 1st, 2023. Tax bills go out in December of 23, and your tax revenue comes in 2024. The way that the town successfully has been able to structure its development agreements is
For example, most of your buildings to fill out the remaining business park, assuming you move forward with these infrastructure improvements, are going to construct in 2023. They would be valued as of 24, with tax payments coming in 2025. The development agreements, as they're written, actually call for tax payments as if the buildings were there already, with the first tax payment coming in 2024, which significantly helps with the cash flow of the district, and that's what's shown in those columns. In terms of your expenditures, what we're showing in the columns in blue is the existing and then estimated debt service payments for your current general obligation notes that were taken out in 2021 at interest rates that I wish we could get back, but right now, at least temporarily, that ship has sailed. We're showing estimated principal and interest payments when you refinance the remaining amount of principal, which is $2.6 million approximately in 2031. What we're talking about really is this third column of numbers in blue. That is the estimated principal and interest payments on the debt that you would be moving forward with this fall. So that's based on where interest rates are currently, with some factor in for additional market rate movement between now and the day of sale. And between now and September 12th, depending on where interest rates go, we may revise that again as we come back before you for authorization. But this is where rates are right now. From a historical perspective, interest rates obviously have come up significantly since the first of the year. From a historical standpoint, when I was before this group back in 2021 and you were issuing taxable notes, that was at a rate that was just over 1%, which again, we'd love to get back. Right now, in terms of the market, we're looking at interest rates starting at about 2.3%, going up to 3.15%. So from a historical standpoint, still a fairly favorable interest rate environment, even though obviously interest rates have increased quite dramatically since the first of the year. Rates actually peaked out towards the end of June and have actually started to stabilize and come back down. Although this morning rates did come up, at least in the short-term period of the yield curve. So it's something we'll continue to monitor. And if we need to update the planning projections, we'll certainly do so to try to present the town with as most an accurate picture of where we think the interest rates will come in October. So on the day of sale, really what we're looking at is your meeting falls on October 10th. We're still looking at doing the sale that week, but we're likely targeting that Wednesday, the 12th. So thereabouts, depending on what other sales we know of are out in the marketplace in Wisconsin that week. On the day of sale, we'll take bids usually sometime between 9 and 11 o'clock. We'll tally those bids and send the bids off to your bond counsel, which is Quarles and Brady. They'll prepare the sale day resolution and related items for signature. We'll prepare a sale day report as we normally do and send that to staff at the town. And from a parameter sale, we always designate or want to designate 2 signatories in case somebody is not around. Believe it or not, we've had to pull elected officials off of vacation, ski hills, different places, because on the day of sale, they were not where they were supposed to be. So we always want to make sure that we have two signatories. So it's usually say Kathy and Joe as the signatories, and then on the day of sale, depending on who's available, one of them will sign. And then bond sale is executed, and that's it. So you'd have funds on hand under this type of scenario right around the end of October. So right now we've targeted October 27th, but that'll be fine tuned as we move forward. So you'll have funds on sale or funds on hand, really ready to go, for fall construction. In terms of the closeout of the district, we're looking at our projected revenues and expenses, and really that period of time where our cumulative fund balance in the tax increment district exceeds the remaining amount of principal between the 2 different debt issuances that you've undertaken, or 2 sets of financing that you've done for your infrastructure improvements. And right now, What we're projecting is in 2037, that your fund balance will exceed your liabilities outstanding. You'll be able to call the debt issuances and close the tax increment district. Any excess fund balance will be distributed out to the town as well as the overlapping taxing jurisdictions based on the percentages in your statement of taxes. So I know that's kind of a lot of ground to cover, but I think it's worthwhile to be here tonight to at least set the stage. You'll have another kick at this in September, these same worksheets as well as a detailed pre-sale report. You'll see my lovely face back here again in September to walk through this again with you. But again, I think it's nice to and I appreciate Kathy asking me to be here this evening to walk through this at least preliminarily with the board so that you've got some groundwork laid going into September here.
So with our hopeful impending incorporation, will this be something that, as far as once you're a village, you can take out a longer term?
You can.
Is this something we should be thinking about sooner? Or something, a conversation to be had at some point? I mean, we have a great interest rate in our first.
You do, yeah. This won't really affect this type of financing, but once you become a village, say for your road projects, new town hall, just throwing out hypothetical type projects, whatever it might be, you have the option, once you become a village, to do longer than 10 years without having to go to a referendum. Now, town hall, I shouldn't have said that one because that's a bad example. Town hall, village hall, city hall, under state statutes, you have to, if you're gonna go to bonds, you have to go to a direct referendum. It's just one of those enumerated purposes under statutes. But if you were to say, we're going to go out for a road project, that road has a 20-year lifespan, you can do a borrowing up to 20 years through general obligation bond issuance without having to go to a direct referendum. So that's one of the nice powers that you'll gain, when you become a village.
Any questions on?
John, under the first taxable note, it closes at 2.61 and estimates its refunding at 2.7. Where did the 90,000 go?
That is the total of the issuance expenses. But there might be some double counting of those issuance expenses, so it might be a little bit less than that.
Okay, and then I see on the second promissory note, the refunding,
Mhm.
you look at 75 as well.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, it might be double counting some of those issuance expenses.
I guess I was thinking along the same lines of the chairman.
So,
Were you thinking that we would look for a different bond once we kind of go? Or a
Or
bonding structure?
would it be advantageous for us to, when we have significant cash, to be honest? Would it be advantageous to wait until we are a village to do some of this? Like, could we, like, if we had cash in a general fund that could afford to pay for some of this?
you certainly could and not borrow or reduce your borrowing.
Right, I mean, so basically then come February, hopefully, if we are a village, then immediately go out for a TID bond and we could refund ourselves, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so if you're gonna do something like that, what we'd want you to do is adopt a reimbursement resolution. And what that does is declares your intent to reimburse yourself with tax exempt debt. So it allows you to use funds on hand until the point that you go out for a debt issuance, and then you can reimburse yourself for the costs that you've incurred to date. So that's a simple resolution that you could do. If you did want to wait till February, that's, up to you, assuming you've got adequate fund balance to move forward with the projects and pay for that cost with available cash. Wait for the ability to issue longer term debt where you not have to go back and, do the refinancing of a balloon payment at the end.
So we'd have to know what the savings would be. I mean, you can't predict what's gonna happen.
In terms of
2030,
interest rates
obviously.
between now and February, no, I wish I could.
But I mean,
If I could, you'd see me on some.
right, I mean,
TV
more
show.
so, not that, more so the savings of issuing two separate.
Mhm. You're right, though. I mean, it would be that 75,000 in terms of issuance expense. For coming back and having to stretch that debt out. You know, there is a chance, you know, depending on the performance of the tax increment district,
You might not
That
have to at all.
you might not have to at all. You might have the cash. I mean, we're showing that you technically would have a cumulative fund balance where you might be able to just pay it off too. So that's another thing to, you know, to consider.
Really. Should we be looking at the 2023 expenses or 2024?
In terms of cash flow,
Well, if we wait until February, are we gonna have to then use 2024 projections?
no, you'd still rely on this. I mean, it wouldn't really. It would just change the timing of the payment. So instead of a 22 issuance, you'd have a 23 issuance. Where you'd start payments, instead of starting the repayment in 2023, we'd likely would start in 2024. Maybe we'd have an interest payment at the end of 23. But for the most part, you'd start payments then the following year. It just slides everything down a year. Really is what it does.
I mean, as we draw closer to that, are we gonna be able to get better projections to make that decision, or? I guess I don't wanna roll the dice on,
Better projections in terms of what?
we have these projections as of today, or whenever this was drafted, but
Yeah, no, this won't really, I mean, really, this is based on, from a revenue standpoint, this is based on revenue that's there right now. Plus revenue from known development that is forthcoming here. So from a revenue standpoint, I think the hope would be that the value higher than what the projections are in here. You know, for example, Casey's, Wyckoff, I would say both valued a little bit higher than initial cash flow projections had them at. So if they value higher, it just provides a little bit more increment in the latter years of the TID. Maybe it allows you to pay that debt down sooner, it allows you to close the tax increment district a little bit sooner. But there really won't be much change to the cash flow between now and February. This is based on the best information that we have right now.
The other thing they consider is we're gonna be really, really busy in
yeah, I.
February.
About the same.
So I mean, that's something else to consider.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have the ability to move forward with this now. You'd have the ability to, you know, presuming you've got cash flow to pay for construction expenses, you'd have the ability to adopt a reimbursement resolution, use funds on hand and see what, you know, happens with your referendum vote and
Just a-
incorporation effort. But
Plus on interest rates jump 2%. That would be horrific.
that would affect the cash flow of this district, no doubt.
So it's like,
But again, I'd love to tell you, but
Yeah.
Like-
No,
Well-
no, no.
I think November is gonna make a little bit of a decision on that.
okay. Well, I think at this point, unless I hear differently, we can start to prepare the preliminary resolutions for September here.
Everybody good with? I guess it's coming down to. The scenario I was talking about is, you know, it could pay off and be a good gamble. It also could be a very bad thing to do. The other aspect is in February, we are gonna be right in the middle of hopefully a referendum that we don't wanna be.
Yeah, the other thing to consider is that you'd have to have everything really done. You'd have to be incorporated. You'd have to, I mean, that's another, you know, factor to consider in the market is that from those who are purchasing your debt, you're preparing that, you know, between now and October, between February and March, when you know, if you wait, there's an official statement that gets prepared, and that official statement is something that we prepare for the town, but it's the town's document. And in that, we'd be talking about the, you know, the incorporation efforts and that you're now a village. So, you know, you'd want to make sure that obviously you've gone through the process, you know, legally everything is buttoned up from that standpoint so that you have the legal authority to actually issue bonds as opposed to notes. So not trying to dissuade you, certainly, if
No,
it's
but it's
very
also-
viable. Yeah, it's a very viable option to wait and roll the dice, so to speak, I guess.
I think if we were 4 more months into what we're doing, I think I'd feel a little more confident doing that. That's the only thing.
Yeah, the workload aspect of it is something to consider too, because the other piece of it is going through, that there is a lot of information that goes into the preparation of the official statement. And there's a questionnaire that we send out to town staff with information that we need back in order to prepare the document. We also are going through the rating report process with Moody's. And that also is an effort that, town staff has to, be a big part of in terms of carrying the water on a rating call. So things to consider.
Would a shorter term be favorable or less favorable?
Shorter term and then refinance it once you become a village. Potentially that could be, you'd still have to go through, if we go through the issuance process in the open market, it's not going to really reduce your issuance expenses. If you're going to do something very short term, one other option might be to look at a local bank and then refinance it, some point in 2023 or beyond. That could be another possible option as well.
Yeah, I guess my question would be is if we did a short-term solution like that, would it be more favorable to us to open it in 2023 with different status?
Again, you're not going to see, in terms of the cash flow, you're not going to see much of a change between now and kind of the early part of 2023. The point you'll see a change is when new numbers come out from the state in August of 2023. That's when you'll know what value the tax increment district has as of January 1st, 2023.
Local bank, interest rates from them are typically higher than what you're gonna see. Maybe
Correct.
4-5%, I'm assuming.
Well, it depends on if it's shorter term, it'll be a lower interest rate. But it's something you'll have to come back in a year and obviously, refinance.
I guess my thought was if it is gonna be a projected 157,000. Certainly confident the town can cover that. Funding itself.
Yeah.
Is that what I'm reading correctly under the 2023 total expenditure projection?
Well, that's assuming you go out for the debt issuance. So what that is showing is your expenses, what that 157,000 is your total debt service expenses plus administration cost in 2023. So that's your existing principal and interest on your current debt plus a planned interest expense on the debt that you would be issuing here presumably in fall.
And we geared it this way, so at the beginning of the TID, the payments, that it was much lower and then picked up later.
Correct, because again, it takes time for the buildings to be built, to become valued, and for tax increment revenue to come in the door. So the payment structure in terms of what you see really is designed around the planned increase to your revenue stream over time as that building park gets built out.
We'd be looking at that 2 million is what we'd have to fund out of.
So I think realistically, what you're talking about for the infrastructure improvements is either moving forward with this type of a plan or using your funds on hand or doing a short-term note, waiting until you go through the referendum process and then either paying yourself back with a longer-term debt issuance, a bond issue, or refinancing the note with a refunding bond and paying yourself back. Those are really your options as I kind of see them. Either way, you're kind of, you don't have cash within this tax increment district, to just pay those infrastructure
This is coming from
costs.
the town general fund.
Yeah, you'd have, if you're not gonna borrow, you'd be using the town's general fund and reimbursing yourself. If you were to say, we don't want to borrow at all, and we just want to use the town's general fund, and you have the TID pay the town's general fund back over its lifespan, that would be something I'd want to caution you on in terms of the drawdown of your fund balance and how that might be portrayed by Moody's in particular, from a rating standpoint. Not to say you can't do it if you have adequate fund balance.
We
to
have a
do
very
it.
healthy fund balance, especially since we've been selling off this property but it's still. We've got a lot of projects too.
You do, I know you've got upcoming road projects and certainly, you can consider fund balance for that. You also, in terms of the selling off of the land, you have a state trust fund loan that was taken out for that land sale. You could pay that off. State trust fund loans are prepayable really at any point during the year with a 30-day written notice. There's a small period of time where you can't do it at the end of the year. But other than that, you can turn around and pay that debt off.
I think the reason we haven't done that yet is because it was envisioned that potential borrowing for a road was gonna be higher than, we're at 3.5% on that.
Okay.
It was potential that the borrowing might be higher than that, but it sounds like maybe not.
On a short-term basis, maybe not. No. If we're looking at promissory notes,
We go to local banks for that. We don't go to. We had that $8 million borrow we sold. We did
right.
the sale, but we don't typically do that with $500,000. We do that with 2 million, but not.
Right, because what we're looking at, as it was pointed out, when you go out to the market, there's issuance expense, there's us as your municipal advisor, there's bond counsel. There's disclosure counsel, and then you've got the rating agency fee with Moody's. There's also what's called the underwriter's discount, and that's generally the largest expense in the transaction, and that's the underwriter's fee for purchasing the debt and then turning around and selling it on the secondary market. So you want to make sure that those costs are more than outweighed by the interest rate that you're getting.
That's just, I was gonna ask you, when I look at all the costs here involved, they're quite excessive for bonds. So to dump in it and buy different ones for bonds.
Yep, so I think what you're talking about in terms of the issuance expenses is
Yes.
what you want to look at is the total principal and interest payments
Mhm.
over the life of the debt. If you're comparing an option to a local bank. Again, what you might see with the bank is a higher interest rate, but less upfront expense. So what you want to do is a side-by-side comparison to say, we went out to the open market, this is what we'd reasonably anticipate. We went with a bank, this is our principal and interest payments, and that'll give you kind of an apples to apples comparison. Because you're right, so with larger size transactions, the open market is usually the lowest source of capital.
Something
Well,
to
how does
think
it
about.
Becky, I mean, how are you feeling with this? Just want to proceed with what the plan is for all of this conversation, really, but the plan right now was,
I feel that John is our financial advisor, and I think we need to take his advice and go with what Eller has come up with. That's my.
Paula?
Who's got a crystal ball handy, really? It's. I mean, we could make, this could be good or bad. It's a lot for the newbie here.
It's a lot
Your
for the
big
old
numbers.
bees here.
That's why you make the big bucks.
Yeah. I don't know, I see the wisdom with what you're saying, Becky, I mean, but I also, if there's something we could do that would save the town, or, I don't know, I'm gonna defer on this one for right now, and just. Yeah.
I think we need to think about it and when they come back, but
We don't have a lot of time.
I know that, that's what I'm saying, we don't have a lot of time. I understand that you're the professional here and we're not, I still don't understand, going
But-
through all
And
this
just
stuff.
to be, John's doing what we asked him to. At this
Right,
point.
right,
I mean, he didn't come to us to say this or that. I mean, we asked. him to
right.
get
And so
this together.
I'd like to know the different options, and how can we save some money? For the residents.
Well, I mean, we kind of just laid them, it's a gamble.
Yes,
We can do what we know right now. We have some, and it's not guaranteed we're gonna get these rates either. This is just the best guess at this point.
Right, yeah,
Yes.
I think in general, in terms of the future. Because you are limited in doing the 10-year option. It's really that second set of issuance expenses that you could potentially avoid by by waiting, seeing if the referendum is successful and moving forward with a bond issue.
Yeah.
That would require some interim steps to bridge the gap, primarily from, I think what I'm hearing is use of fund balance between now and then on a
Yeah.
temporary basis to pay yourself back.
Yeah,
And then you're waiting to see if you're successful, you know. Kind of the old saying is don't try to time the market, right? You know, bond market, stock market, anything, you know, you move forward based on when you're ready to proceed. And I think you're ready to proceed with the project.
We
It's,
have to.
yeah, I think it's just a matter of, you know, certainly that second set of, you know, issuance related expenses. And I think that's presented in the matter of full disclosure to try to show you what your maximum exposure is.
that's
out
what
there.
bothers me, is that second step, I guess.
Problem
And
is if interest rates jump a whole percent,
Exactly,
who's gonna be sitting here?
exactly,
next
going,
year.
oh my gosh, we shoulda, woulda, coulda. But John, if you would have known that we'd had cash on hand for some, would you have recommended still this?
Well, no, not, yes, we would have. I think it's really, in my mind, it's really what happens with your referendum.
That's
Because getting village status, if you were a village, we would not be showing you two steps. We would be showing you one financing stretched out through 2040 through the remaining life of the tax increment district. With a call feature in there that would allow you to do it. It's because you limited to no more than 10 years that you have to show the second step. But with that being said, there's a potential that I think there's a good potential, if you move forward with these notes, I think there's a very good potential in 2032 that you're able to prepay or pay down a fairly significant amount of your remaining balance and possibly go to a local bank for the rest. Say, we want to stretch this out another 5-7 years. Let's take it out. We don't have to go through all the related second set of issuance expenses if we have some principal left. Or if we have enough cash, we'd be able to pay it off on, you know, with funds on hand.
Mhm.
Our TIF is developing quicker than we thought it was going to, but with doing those developers agreements where we're getting the money right away.
Right.
Yeah, that is a nice help.
Mhm.
So I think both options are good. You know, it's not, I think if you move forward with this as is, it's not necessarily a bad choice, a bad option or, you know, poor financial decision for the town. I think you're moving forward based on what you know right now in terms of your financing abilities, in terms of length of term. And what you might, you know, have out there in the latter years of the district.
We pretty much know what we have if we do it this way, we don't know if we do it the other way,
Exactly.
so.
Well, there's two variables, not just one.
When we have a choice and we need to know which way to, you know. Mark?
Hey, Mark.
I really see there's two options. I'm not gonna restate everything you just did, but I guess I'm fairly confident that we will attain village status. And I think that would be more favorable to us for a long-term financial strategy, because then we would not have to rebond or refund bond any of these two. I think we could, well, I think we could
One and a
wrap,
half.
we could wrap the first one into the second one.
No, we can't because that is not callable yet. So
Well,
that one you're gonna have to deal with no matter
So
what.
we'll have to write out the first tax.
Yep.
deal.
Which is not a bad one to write out based on the interest
Well,
rates you
yeah,
have.
exactly.
We're talking about $75,000.
Right,
75 for,
Issuance
Debt
issuance
issuance.
expense, that with that second issue.
yeah,
That's assuming we get the same interest rate then that we do now.
exactly. Say, even if it went up a percentage, what would the interest rate be?
Well, the whole point, I think it's gone and then some.
Yeah, we're showing 3.75% on that future debt issuance in 2032. So if it went up a point, it'd be close to 5%
Mhm.
versus waiting to February and locking in, you know. So you know, depending on your level of confidence and available cash flow, it's a viable option.
are you able to show us? I mean, I'm a visual thinker of numbers. Are you able to show us those two options? Or, I guess, from what I'm hearing is, do the GO with the limiting resolution. What does that look like for us? And then also to wait and use our own fund balance until 2023.
Yeah, I think
Is that kind of hard because we can't tell me what the interest rate's gonna be?
I would probably
That's
add,
not joking.
I'd add a little more cushion to that, that 23 issue, but I think you'd have this option here, as one is kind of what I'm hearing, and then the second option of using your cash on hand, obtaining village status and going through a longer, a general obligation bond issue in spring of 2023. So those would kind of be the two options that you're, yep, yeah,
I just think,
I'm half done with it already.
I think if we do, I'm very confident that our citizens see it the same way. We attain village status. We're gonna be able to lock in a lower rate for a longer period of time. And really, these rates aren't that far from, what we graciously received in 21.
Yeah.
On a big scale.
Yep.
But now we creep into the 5s and 6s, we're talking.
Yeah, that'll certainly affect the cash flow of the TID, no doubt. No doubt.
How long do you need to prepare all the documents?
Well, so I'm kind of what I'm hearing is maybe on September 12th. What we could do is prepare the initial resolutions for this option. You'd at least have them there. If you want to move forward with them, you could. If you don't have to. We could also do a pre-sale report with this option. And then we could do a second, comparison that we'd hand out at the meeting, or it would be in the packet, obviously ahead of the meeting. And we could walk through both. And then at that time, if you want to move forward with this option as presented, you could authorize the resolutions to move forward. If you want to wait and use your internal funds on hand, you could certainly not take action on those resolutions and move forward that way. And then your second meeting in September, if you did go that direction, what we'd want you to do is do a reimbursement resolution for that. I think that would be the best, because if you did want to move forward with it, it keeps you right on track. You don't lose any time period by having a second meeting to look at options. But it allows you to proceed as you see fit in terms of which option you want to go. So.
I'm trying to think if we from 32 to, that extra one, with the interest, if we took out a longer loan, if we become a village, okay? When you add those interest rates in there and compare it to what we'd be paying now in refinancing, and with the $75,000 it's going to cost us to go to the bond sector, is that, how much more is that going to be?
It's hard to say because we don't know, we don't know where we're gonna be in 2031, but I think at the very least, you could say that 75,000 in issuance expenses, that would be eliminated. So that's a known.
Right, 'cause he can't guarantee us the 3.5.
Oh,
3.7.
Exactly.
But if we get a 2.5, and we can do it for, what will be the term? 20 years?
It would be less than 20, it would be about 17 years.
Stretch the guarantee rate over 17
When we're a
years
village,
versus gambling on 2 different.
right?
Right.
When we're a village, you're saying?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, if the rates come in favorable and middle 2s, low 3s, I don't see why we wouldn't.
Mhm.
'Cause I can't imagine in 15 or 10 years, they're gonna be lower than.
Oh, I don't think so.
I'm not a financial.
It goes like this.
I don't know either.
Uh,
Again, I would be on some talk show.
Okay,
I guess then, in my hearing, we should have John prepare both sides.
yeah, I'm in favor.
Becky, you want to just go for both sides, or you're just?
So going with option 2, do you see any negative drawbacks to, I guess, putting a priority to that one?
Well, the negative drawback would be if interest rates really came up between now and February. I mean, that would be, you at least, if you move forward now and rates come up between now and then, you've at least locked in for 10 years of the term. At a more favorable interest rate than where they would be headed. But that really would be the only drawback. I mean, you'd be using existing fund balance, but it would be for a fairly short period of time. Really by, just kind of walking you through that process. If you waited until February, if we authorized in February, you'd sell in March, you'd have funds by April. You'd be able to replenish your fund balance. So you've got to make sure you've obviously got the funds to do it, which, I can't sit here and tell you you do. I haven't looked at your.
I think a lot of it's gonna be the timing on what we have to do. Because
But-
some of it's pretty quick.
Yeah, my guess would be by now and between now and February, March, you'd have spent that money. For a good amount of it.
Well, probably good amount of it for sure.
So that's the only drawback I could see.
All right. You can prepare them both. That would be what we're looking for.
Sounds very good.
All right, any other questions for John?
Mm-mm.
Thank you, John.
Yep, no, thank you.
Thank you.
See you in a month or a couple weeks.
Couple
Sorry.
weeks. All good. Item C, discussion necessary action regarding possible traffic issue due to Hillside Road and Highway Q roundabout.
As some of you may remember, next year, there's gonna be a roundabout put in at Hillside and Highway Q. Washington County project. And a couple of things, I'll start with the second thing on there, because that might be a little easier. The truck traffic from Lafarge gets, uses that intersection heavily, while that intersection is gonna be closed for potentially 3 months. It's just the only way they can do it. I've asked otherwise. It's just not an option to keep 120 on average trucks coming in and out of the quarry. While there's a construction zone and trying to turn a four-way intersection into a roundabout. So, but the good news is tomorrow morning I'm meeting with Lafarge. And we're gonna go kind of tour a little bit over there. There's potential to have the truck traffic go out to North Road, which is the next main road to the east.
I thought they couldn't do that because of the
Well-
conservancy over there.
They have a gravel driveway. It's definitely not ready to be hit with 120 trucks a day, but they're willing to do something to make it work, because I really don't think they're gonna get much blessing from you guys to say, yeah, put all those trucks up Hillside Road to Plainview or wherever for 3 months, so.
Oh, geez.
The option is to put a temporary road over to North Road. And they would basically go the equal distance from their driveway to Q. It would just be on North Road instead of Hillside. North Road is one of our main roads. It's built a little better than a subdivision road from the past. Now all our roads are built pretty tough, but. I mean, could something happen to the road over 3 months of trucking like that? Sure. Are there trucks on the road right now because of the building going on throughout town? Yes, but not to that extent. So. I think I'll have more information after tomorrow's meeting, but I really think if they say we will do that for you, it's really the only option that makes sense, because worst case scenario, there's some damage for a quarter mile of road. That's a lot better than
Sending them the other way.
damage on Hillside and Plainview, and then they, how,
We
whatever.
don't want them
they-
going on Plainview.
No.
getting Out on 164.
And then they randomly make a wrong turn and now they're going eastbound down Plainview to Town Line and Hillside to Good Hope and whatever the case may be. They're not all gonna be on that path. So it just makes the most sense. The only issue we'd probably have, but I'm sure Lafarge would make signs for us, is any traffic that would want to exit north, hit Q while there is projects to the west, right? Well, they're not gonna be able to go west because Q will be closed. They'll have to make a long way around, the Town Line up to Lisbon Road and back over to 164. But for 3 months, it's just the way it's gonna be. I think that'll be the option. So we'll let that ride for now, because I might have a good answer tomorrow, hopefully. I just wanted to bring it to your attention that this is something that's coming up, and I've been trying to make a easy way around it, and it's becoming a bit of a challenge.
This sounds kind of, if they're willing to, have traffic come on North Road, which is great. They understand that that is not a highway for heavy traffic for these trucks. Is it possible that they would, when we have to redo the road, that they would help fix the road? because of all their trucking in there for 3
They're
months?
gonna say it's not our fault that
Yeah,
we're putting a roundabout in. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
Yes, the simple answer is probably no, but they're good people and I get along with them well, so I will, but they're a very big corporate, like
yeah,
huge company.
Yeah.
Land and Stone is right here, Land and Stone. Lafarge is
Okay.
massive all over the
okay,
world.
just
So,
a thought.
but I mean, Corey that runs it, I deal with, he's awesome and you never know what could happen, right? Donations or donations. so.
Thank
I
you.
could see him saying, so you want us to move our, put a road in to
Yeah.
move this over and you want us to help pay for the road we're gonna damage?
Yeah,
Because you helped ask us to move it.
yeah.
It was just a thought.
Well, I get you. I do. I'm just
Yeah.
thinking of what they're gonna.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
no,
Yeah.
you're probably exactly right. So,
Yeah,
Joe, can you also check into the Bark River Bridge? You know? I don't know.
I mean, trucks are going over it all the time, so it's obviously rated for 80,000, but I mean. How many trucks are going over it? Yes,
Yeah.
I can find out, so. All right, I'll work on that and then, so the other thing is the speed limit. Washington County has requested, which is simple. But Becky, I think this is where we may want to bring this to a meeting before we want to do anything here, but I just thought I'd bring it here since it's coming anyways. They need the speed limit reduced to 35 miles an hour, 1,000 feet prior to the roundabout. Now I asked, I said, well, 164 is 55 miles an hour right up to the roundabout. And Q is 50 miles an hour right up to that roundabout at Q and 164. Why can't we just leave it 45? Well, it's due to the impact of the roundabout. If they keep a higher speed going into it, they need to bring their medians and all that way further north, meaning, or south, meaning you'd be, impacting a lot more land, blah, 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 blah. So the simple thing is you change a couple signs out to 35 miles an hour prior to the intersection. I just thought, which is why maybe this needs to go to public safety for a discussion, which we have a little time, so we could do that. I don't know if we want to have another meeting. I know how we meet for public safety, but roughly from Good Hope to Q is 3 miles. There is a far south section of Hillside Road that used to go to 164 that doesn't anymore when they redid that to Good Hope. That's 25 miles an hour, but that's kind of not what I'm talking about here. So the 3 miles, half is roughly 35 miles an hour, the south half, the north half is 45 miles an hour. If we're gonna take that roughly 7,000 feet of the 45 mile an hour section and now reduce 1,000 feet of it to 35, do we just say, make the whole road 35 miles an hour? Cause to me, it would help on those hills, it would, but I can't make the
That wasn't-
decision, I'm just throwing it out there.
We had a public safety meeting for that years and years and years ago, and that was one ugly one. I never
Yeah.
seen so many people in favor of keeping it 45 in my life.
Sure,
Because it was presented to drop it to 35 and they were just dead set against it.
and that's fine, it can stay that way and just be the 1,000
That
feet
was,
prior.
that was
Yeah,
10 years ago.
it could be something talked about. We could, if you wanna, it'd have to probably be this year still, cause this is a project that potentially starts in April. The speed could be changed during the construction of it in April, May, June of next year, so we don't have, Richfield got on it a little bit before I did, so they already have it changed, but they just reduced it 1,000 feet prior. I think they're at 40 though. And then they go to 35, where we're gonna be 45 to 35. So. It's gonna be roughly correct. It's basically right by Grants. So you don't impact a whole lot there. You just, right after the Lafarge entrance, it will go to 35, basically.
Well, I think when we want to reach that bridge and to change the speed limit on the entire road to 35, I guess, no, but station, I don't think it went to the public safety committee,
It did. I was on it.
so it was 35 then?
Well, when it was 35, it was changed temporarily to 35. It came to the public safety committee to make it permanent, I believe. And it was a bit ugly. The public safety committee, I believe, recommended 35, but it went to the board and it was kept at 45. Yeah, it was. There were people
I
that
know
were
it
not
was
happy.
but- And I don't know if it would have to go to the public safety committee Oh, they're just asking them that.
I'm asking you. I didn't want to overstep it and bring it to you guys.
No,
Personally,
the county is asking.
yes, they need it due to probably state statutes. Yeah,
At a minimum, we need to do it 1,000 feet.
correct. And that
Is
I
anybody
think
against
it's,
that?
no, I was gonna say, at this level, I think we can make that decision. If you don't want to even monkey with it and we just run with that, we run with that and be done with it.
Do that. Keep it simple. Don't
That
what?
would be my preference.
Oh, I'm totally fine. It doesn't bother
1,000
me.
feet and leave the rest alone.
Yeah,
It was just something I thought of thinking maybe it's something you guys are
No.
down with that.
that's
Well,
not Russell
Yeah,
to me.
1,000 feet's good.
1,000
Good for
feet.
me.
We had some substantial developments south of North Lisbon. That's what I would consider, but nothing has really changed south of North Lisbon except for
Hmm.
there, that one subdivision that's at the bottom of the hill.
Water's edge.
What is that?
Mhm.
I still get yelled at for like 5.
Oh, I'll do.
Yes. People, because it's 35. A lot of people that want that 45. I wouldn't think so. That was a long time ago. You and I, were-
We got a lot.
that was even before you were on the board. That
Yeah,
was
don't
yeah,
mean
that was
that.
a long time ago.
Mhm.
So, okay,
But
Becky, you're good with keeping 1,000 or you wanna, okay, yeah, 1,000 feet.
I mean, this is kind of off topic, but I never understood why BV was 55 and 164 is 45. Silver Spring is 55 by my house.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's Coles.
MD is too,
Yeah,
oh,
Yeah.
single lane and then you have double or 2 lane roads.
county versus state.
A lot of people went through that same thing.
Yeah.
A lot of people get tickets on that road.
A lot of people don't pay any attention to any speed limit.
This is true.
That's true.
Bingo.
In,
That's very true.
Joe, in relation to potentially if things would go awry and we had to take traffic back down Plainview to 164. Has there been any discussion with the states? Anytime you've heard anything lately as far as roundabout or improvements there?
No, the last meeting we had was last summer when we were doing all those meetings, because it's getting repaved in 26, 164, and I asked multiple times and the answer is, there wasn't enough data for us to do anything. And then I
have
just hear about
made
another
calls. I mean,
accident.
It seems our state
Yeah.
representatives keep passing the buck back to us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if
Seems
somebody wanted to pound the pavement, maybe could get something done, but man, alive, there's been letters sent and
I
it
know.
just can't get anything. I don't get it. To me, I avoid the intersection sometimes, especially during
It's not a
rush
good,
hour.
I mean, we've had another
Yeah.
accident there. We haven't had fatalities there,
Yeah, I hear
so
you.
to say, but I mean,
There's
there's
always
been some
something.
serious
Where's
accidents.
that again?
Plainview and 164.
Oh, yeah,
I avoid that intersection.
yeah.
Right, but the state controls it.
Mhm.
And I've had a couple residents question us what we can do and. I mean, I don't know what to do anymore. I mean, our state representatives keep throwing it back, well, one of our state representatives keeps throwing it back at us. And. They're the ones that are supposed to advocate for it, I guess.
Mhm.
and there,
There was just another accident.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Wow.
But maybe that's something we gotta have another, maybe I'll have an agenda item on that in the future to talk about.
Okay,
All right.
thanks for hanging
Thank you.
around, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah,
I like simple.
nice and short.
Item D is discussion necessary action regarding operator license application for Jonathan Schubert. We are lacking a recommendation from our Kevin Panis on this one. I guess I'd ask maybe we delay this to the next meeting.
Perfect.
Is everybody okay with that?
Yes. Fine with me.
But just no action on that at this time. Item 13 is adjournment.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're out at 8:51.